another meeting. I'm not blowing you guys off.
That means your picture is going to be showed up here.
It is anyway.
But if I'm not here to see it,
I think the reason why there aren't more people at the auction on Sunday morning is because it's after that great concert on Saturday night. But it is usually a valiant few that do a lot of purchasing. So I'll help bid people up if anybody wants to go buy steers and pigs. Okay, let's see. Onward. Branding. That's why you're all here. Somebody asked tonight, how come we don't have shrimp and cocktail sauce tonight? And I said, that's when we only had 20 people that came to our meetings. Now we have 60. So, branding. Why? Exactly why do we need a brand? Probably exactly the same reason why you brand cattle. It gives you identity, it gives you ownership, it's your trademark, and it's your label. It's what you're known for. And it distinguishes you from all the other cattle in the pasture. So that's why we're here. And good branding supports a healthy community and builds upon and combines with pursuing and preserving local history and culture also. And perception is what drives reality, and with that, Ann's going to walk us through a presentation. Thanks.
Oh yeah, branding history.
Good evening. I want to thank all of you, and I know there's a lot of interest. There's been a lot of press coverage about the branding, and I'm going to attempt to. Destination development is not my area of expertise, but I have been very interested in this, and so I'm happy to present this to you tonight. This all got started, some of you already know, but for a lot of you, that about, I think it was July 2006, Roger Brooks from Destination Development was here at Ironstone for a morning workshop that was sponsored by the Visitors Bureau. And it was during that time that I was sitting next to Tim Shear and a few others from Angels Camp, and we were talking about what great ideas Roger Brooks had and how important it would be for Angels Camp, and gee, if we could just make this happen here. Tim went ahead and working with a consultant got a wonderful grant that was supported by the City Council, and as a result of that, then after the bids went out, Destination Development was hired, and they started their work last autumn, or I guess last winter, in December. And it started with an assessment, and this is their assessment report, which was presented in February, but there weren't that many people there that night, and the more people who know about this and understand this, and sometimes it takes 2 or 3 times to hear it, and kind of have it sink in, the better we are, the more community support we'll have, and the more community feedback we'll have. So in December of 2007, Destination Development did the first part of the marketing assessment survey. The first part was that they, part of their teams, they assigned to come to the Gold Country and plan a trip to the Gold Country. And they were not told to come to Angels Camp. They were told to come and look in this area, and they were to come for a weekend. And so they, of course, the first thing you do when you're planning a trip is usually you either go to the website or you look in magazines or you do something like that looking for information. So that was the first part of the assessment, was what's on websites for Angels Camp, and does it sell? Is there a reason for me to come to Angels Camp to spend a weekend? So that was their marketing effectiveness assessment in that, and we'll cover some of that. Then they were looking to see if Angels, well, they looked at all these communities around here because they didn't know they were coming to Angels Camp. But they were looking to see, is there a lure, is there a primary lure, a hook, that will get us to come to this? Is there a town here that just really grabs you and pulls you in, that's a must-see, that would get me to drive for the weekend from the Bay Area or from Sacramento? And is it worth a special trip? So they were looking for that. And the key that Destination Development and the key in branding is that you always promote your primary lure. Well, we have to decide what our primary lure is here in Angels Camp, but that's what you promote. And when visitors come to your community, they'll come for a reason. And if you think about when you go on trips, you might go because you want to go to the Shakespeare Festival, or you want to go to Disney World, or you want to go skiing at a particular ski resort. You will do that about 20% of your time, and you spend 80% of your time on all the diversionary things, the shopping, the eating, the other shows, and maybe traveling around and seeing things. But the reason why you go is usually the lure, the hook. So they were looking to see if there was a community up here in the foothills that had that lure, and we'll hear more about that. Then the second part of the assessment was an on-site assessment. And they sent some secret shoppers down Highway 49 and over Highway 4 to come to Angels Camp for the first time. And just take a look. So really tonight we're going to see visually, because they took lots of photographs, made lots of comments, is the first time you enter Angels Camp as a tourist, what do you see? And so it's a little bit of This Is Your Life Angels Camp tonight. And some of it will be funny, and some will be painful, and some will be good. They have then, as part of their assessment, come up with some suggestions. There'll be a lot of things that need correcting in here, and then they've come up with suggestions. They are not recommendations, because there's been no community feedback. And all they've done is present what the problem is and some suggestions based on experience from other communities. So the suggestions are fairly generic in here, but they're things that are actually low-cost suggestions, things that could be corrected fairly quickly. But the key will be open dialogue in the community. One of the things that Roger Brooks strongly recommends, and I'm happy to say that the City Council and City Administration has taken to heart, is that this cannot be government-led. And they have examples all over the country where the city government, tried to take this on and push this through. And they can support it, they can fund it, but they can't lead it. It really has to be community-led. When it gets into the government wheels, that it tends to kill the initiative. And so one of the things that we've been asked to do as ACBA is to help set up a branding initiative steering committee that will then take on this brand development and help to spearhead it through the community and over the next several years that it will need to be implemented. So we are looking for volunteers, and afterwards, if you are interested at all and want to find out more, then please let me know. And because if we don't have if we don't have the support of particularly the business community, it won't happen. So the whole reason for doing this, and then we'll move on to what their report was. The whole reason for doing this is to bring more money into Angels Camp. It's an economic development program, really, using tourism. When tourism is successful, then the community imports more cash than it exports. And right now, when a community goes out to shop, which we all know is what happens here in Calaveras County and Angels Camp now, you export cash, there's leakage. But if through tourism you can bring more people in, get them to stay longer, spend more money, you're actually importing more cash, and you have a positive balance in trade. And that's the whole reason for doing this. It's not because we want pretty signs or because we like lots of flowers or we want you to put something out in front of your store. The reason to do this is economic development for Angels Camp and for the county. To entice visitors into the county and to get them to stay, you have to have this lure, this hook. And then you have to have all the other things that go to package that. And we'll talk about that. There are three kinds of tourism he talks about, and it's helpful to kind of get this in your mind. First is your family and friends. And they're always going to come in, no matter what you have here in Angels Camp. But where do they stay? They usually stay with you, so they're not in the hotels. Where do they eat? Most of the time they eat with you, and then they do things in the community. So they really don't bring in that much money. And they come because of you, they don't come because of the advertising. The second is business travel. And that would be conferences or people coming for some of these events and that sort of thing. Now, of course, if you have a great tourist destination, you're going to have conferences and all kinds of other things, and they do bring in money. Because I know from organizations that I belong to, it's much easier to have a large conference if you're at Disney World or you're in New York City or you're in New Orleans than if you came to Angels Camp. And so that does bring in money eventually. The key is leisure travel, and they're the ones that spend the money. And today, it's the baby boomers that make up the bulk of the tourists, and they have very specific needs and wants. And we'll learn a little bit more about that. But the first priority for is to get people to even, first of all, to come here, and the second is to stop. If they just pass right on through on Highway 49, or if they get out and take a picture of the frog in front of the Chamber of Commerce's office and get back in the car and keep on going, then that's not doing us any good. It's not bringing money in. So the key is to get them to stop, and if they stop, to get them to spend at least 2 hours here. And then to get them to spend the night or 2 nights here, because that's when they really start to spend the money. When they're staying in the hotels and they're eating, and then they're shopping and they're looking for other things to do. So that's really the priority of this program, is to help us develop a destination that would get people to come here, to drive from the Bay Area, to drive from Sacramento, to drive from Seattle, to come down here. Something that is really unique and special about Angels Camp. And then to get them to stay 4 times longer, because when they get here, they like it. So let's talk a little bit now about the program, and we're going to go to some pictures. I am sorry, if you want to come up a little closer so you can see this, the material that they sent me was in, it's really the pictures. And I don't know if you want to come closer, but if you can see up at the top of the upper right-hand slide, this is a town of Lakeport, and that's the entrance. You can see all the Kiwanis and the Lions and the Rotary signs up there, and weeds and stuff. But this is Lakeport. Look how cute a town it is. Look how neat it is. But the question is you're driving by the highway, 60 miles an hour or more, and you see that, and it says, "Welcome to Lakeport." Are you inclined to stop? First impressions are lasting impressions, and you just keep on going. Why would you even bother to go into that cute little town? They've done nothing to pull you in. Tim? So here we are, Angels Camp. Look familiar. This is coming in from San Andreas, so from the north, where we get a lot of our tourists come this way. And this is what it looks like. The signage there is, the other one is coming in on 4, that says Angels Camp City Limit. Who really cares where the city limit is? And it doesn't say anything else. It doesn't say Historic Angels Camp, 2 miles ahead. These are one of the suggestions that he makes, is that you really need to pull people in. You need to tell them. You need to warn them. You need to entice them. The other thing there is that the signs for the frog jump and the fair are really nice looking signs nowadays. But they've got this vinyl banner sitting there that's got too much text on it that tells about the current event. And so it's hard to read. And then it's sitting in an area where there's lots of junk and debris all around. So what does that say about even the frog jump and the fair? Then the next slide. Here we see Welcome to Angels Camp, which is Historic Angels Camp, which is a really nice sign. But what's right beside the sign? So here's the sign to say, "Welcome to Historic Angels Camp." And what do we have? We have the trailer park there. And what's across the street? More sort of industrialized type of buildings, plus Middleton Shopping Center. So first impressions are lasting impressions. Let's move move on to the next one, because as they see the sign, "Welcome to Historic Angels Camp," the next slide, the next one, this is what they see right in that area. So they see chain link fence, they see vinyl banners, they see sign masts that don't have any signs in them. And what does this say on a first impression? If you drove into a town like this, here's a town on decline. This is really going down. And it doesn't say that there's a historic shopping district or anything ahead. So they thought, and the secret shoppers were making notes that they were in Angels Camp. This was it. So they moved on, and they come to the next intersection, which of course, one of the things that they noticed as they drove through town is that Angels Camp is the vinyl banner capital of America. And probably that's not the lore we want, because not many of us would really, unless you're into vinyl banners, want to go see the vinyl banner capital. But we have them everywhere. And one of their suggestions is that, and we do have within the Planning Commission a group led by Gary Carletto, who is looking at signage for a historic downtown. They said that that's one of the things that the branding committee needs to really work on with the city, is to develop branding, signage guidelines. And there could even be an ordinance about vinyl banners and all these other sorts of things. But this is with this is what people see, and they think they're in Angels Camp at this point. Next one, more vinyl banners. They're everywhere. And I have to say that ACT is as guilty as anyone, because of course we've got our Italian Heritage Day and all sorts of spring fling. They said that occasionally you need vinyl banners for events and things, but they shouldn't be up for months, and they should not be the basic basic advertising, basic signage for a company. And they had some good suggestions about how you can actually do nice signage and put all this information on there. Let's look at the next slide. Here they actually had very high marks for the Christian bookstore, because with their signage, there's another part of first impressions, which is curb appeal. And does the building, the shop, the restaurant, draw you in to the store? Does it make you feel welcome? Does it interest you? Now, we just were on a trip in Gatlinburg, Tennessee this past week, which is Pigeon Forge is the home of Dollywood, which is a real zoo. But occasionally we would see a restaurant or a store that really had curb appeal, and we would go out of all the stuff that was going on there, from houses of wax to carnival rides and everything. But we would say, now that looks like a nice store, or that looks like a nice restaurant, and that we were actually went to those places to eat. Out of all the mess, we were looking for things. So first impressions are lasting impressions, and they really complimented Christian Bookstore for creating this ambiance in front of the store with some seating, with nice signage, with flowers, and in a very confusing corner where there's a lot going on. They had good curb appeal. They also noted up above that signage should only have 8 words on it, that people have to be able to read it in 4 seconds, and they have to be able to see it. And they pointed out with the Frog Jump Motel, if you see all that signage between the speed sign, the motel, there's all kinds of stuff there. They have all their terms and facilities and everything. And as they said, this could be a very nice motel. They don't know, but all they can say is that in looking at this signage, does not have curb appeal. This doesn't look like a quality place to stay. They point out, this is not Angels Camp down below, but here's a shop that has put flowers out, made it appealing, and drawn people in. When Roger Brooks talked about this, he said in getting this store owner to just bring some things outside and make it look nice right out front, that within a month he had emailed Roger to say that investment was really worth it. I paid off my investment and increased profitability by 30% in just 1 month's time. So it really pays, and this whole thing is to bring money into Angels Camp and its businesses. So their suggestions again are to really, maybe we have a committee that will help people develop that curb appeal. It's almost like an interior decorating committee or an exterior decorating committee. But we must go to the next slide, Tim. And that having a clothesline outside, we're going to have a sidewalk sale next weekend. That's a planned event, and that does attract people. But on general terms, just hanging stuff outside is not curb appeal. And in fact, it gives the thrift shop the garage sale, street sale appearance, and it really doesn't bring people in that much. So the other suggestion was, and I think you probably would have a hard time seeing it, to see the thrift shop sign in the center, and of course the wonderful shopping cart that's used out front to hold things, which again they say probably doesn't have that much curvature. So the one at the top is one that's been decorated, the rest of them are no. No, it's not. It's just an example of another place. These are, let me go to the next one, and these are what plantings and landscaping and that feeling of signage and everything does, creates that ambiance that makes people say, hey, this looks like a great place to stop. Let's stop. And if you think about, just recently we did most of the length of 49. It's really interesting when you've seen this to start looking at the towns as you go along 49 and saying, this is our competition, so to speak. And if people are traveling in the gold country, this is what they're looking at. So where are they going to stop? Where are they going to feel comfortable? What's going to pull them in? And so these are just examples. The next one is also, there are lots of organizations like Keep America Beautiful that help with this, provide grants and that sort of thing. But again, here are ways, they've got us up at the very corner there with the barrels and the priority realty sign with the look. But compared, it still looks very bare compared to some of the other street scenes that we see there. Okay. Then there's another, we also have another dubious distinction, being the chain link fence capital of the gold country. And they're saying that chain link fences really only have a place in industrial sites and not on main streets and in commercial and residential areas. Their recommendations, for instance, is at the school, and actually after I saw this the chain link fence has parts of it are wrought iron. So they have some nice wrought iron fencing and then along the road, but it doesn't form a security barrier because they don't have any gates, but it just marks off their territory. The recommendation is, think how much nicer it would look as people come down Main Street if that were all wrought iron fencing. And then, for instance, in front of the Angels Preschool, if they put the cedar things through the fencing and just blocked off the playground, cleaned it up a little bit, and made it look nicer, then that cedar would be more in keeping with the community. So these are the kinds of private initiative ideas that they have. There's another rule that and things that they look for, and what draws us in as tourists is the gateway. Is creating gateways and boundaries. And they felt that Angels Camp has a wonderful opportunity as you come down Main Street and you get right to the top of the hill. So many people just go, oh, because it is a cute little town, as we saw on the cover of the booklet, the starting slide. And they're suggesting that when you want to define an area, not only do you have that signage that says the historic shopping area, 2 miles ahead, 1 mile ahead, and that. But that you create some kind of entrance. And here are several that have been done. Some for pedestrian malls and others for streets. But they have statistics here about how much the business went up in those main streets when they put those gateway marcation there, signage. And it just creates a boundary, and it also creates the destination in that way. So a couple more on the next slide. You can see how they also put signage up, and whereas down at the bottom you'll see that's our Welcome to Angels Camp. This is the Lions, the Rotary, etc. Well, when you're driving by, all you sort of see is this, and none of them are hanging straight, and they're all over the place, and some of them on the top of others. And of course, there's no place to stop to say, oh, I'm a Rotarian, I wonder when they meet. And you can't read them anyway from the car. And they have some suggestions on how you can incorporate that and make that really a valuable way of doing it. One of the things over in the lower left is how this is asphalt that's just been stamped, and that creates that walkway. And they said that their secret shoppers here in Angels Camp found it very intimidating on Highway 4 and 49. It's scary to walk along the streets. It's scary to attempt to cross. The things that we do every day, unfortunately, are fairly safe. But so they're saying that in order to get people to stop and wander, you want them to feel that they can cross the street safely. And there are lots of ways with low-cost ways that cities have done to mark off boundaries and pathways. So instead of just having those 2 lines that tell you that's a pedestrian walkway, there are other ways of doing it through bricks or through concrete or these other colored things. And that tells people there's going to be a safe way for you to get across the street. Next. Here's some suggestions that they had in terms of, as you can look down Main Street, it would be a wonderful place for some sort of gateway signage that would say, here you are, this is Angels Camp, this is the historic part that matches with it. And they've shown how, I can't read the name of the town, Gig Harbor, and they put a very neat, near the parking lot where people enter and stop and visit. They put all their Rotarian and Lions Club signs together. They're neat, they're organized, it's easy to read. They don't have to just see them as they whiz by. There's another one done down in the lower left-hand corner, again, near an entrance. Another one of, I should mention that Roger Brooks has a book out. It's very reasonable, like $10 or something, called The 25 Immutable Rules of Successful Tourism. So he has a number of rules that he talks about, and one of them is real men don't ask for directions. Yeah. And in fact, most real tourists don't ask for directions. And so the key is to make it as easy as possible for people to find their way. We know how to get around Angels Camp, but the first-time visitor has no idea. Now, the first-time visitors, our secret shoppers, pulled down 49. First, they thought they were in Angels Camp when they were at Middleton's and the trailer park, because it said, welcome to historic Angels Camp. Then they saw the Bargain Barrel and that whole area, thought they were in Angels Camp, and they came down to Berkey's Grade Road, and they saw this very wide right-hand lane with the big arrow telling you to turn right. And there's no other signs that say, this is Angels Camp, or keep going straight ahead, or anything. So they figured, turn right. This must be the way to Angels Camp. But where does that take you? Another trailer park. I've always wondered why that lane was so wide, but I can't figure out. Nothing that tells you to keep going. The other thing they found was that the only signage in Angels Camp told you how to get out of Angels Camp. Copperopolis, Murphy's, Sonora, whatever, but not, here's Angels Camp, keep going. There's more to Angels Camp than just this. So they're saying that your signage has to be clear. You have to use it all over, and you also, you shouldn't be afraid to promote a business if that's your lure. If that's one of the best there is, if that's a very special business, promote that, because that's going to draw people in. They'll spend 20% of their time there, 80% of their time doing other things. So, some more signage. The museum. And I'm on the museum commission, so we took this with fully understanding what they were talking about. But up there, in front of the Chevron sign, is this little tiny sign that says museum, 1,000 feet or something, but at 500 feet, it doesn't tell you which side of the road, and it's very hard to see because there's all kinds of other signage, and there are weeds, and there's everything there. And so by the time if you even notice the sign, and they said they drove up and down the street 3 times before they saw the museum and before they saw the sign. The same thing is with the police department. This is something else we noticed when we were trying to get there one day, is you can't find the police department because there's this little tiny sign. And so these are other examples of how other cities have done this. And they're also saying that you have to, besides parking and toilets and restrooms and all of that and how to get around, you also have to plan for RVs parking, because RVs are, that's the way people are traveling these days, and they spend a lot of money when they get there, and they can carry it with them. So the key is the next set of slides. Here's some more samples of, I don't know where this is, where that is, and they spend a lot of money when they get there, and they can carry it with them. So the key is the next set of slides. Here's some more samples of, I don't know where this is, North Adams somewhere, and how they've done. You can have it hanging from your light poles. You can have other directional signs. You'll see the historic district, public parking, and then right in front of that is a map of what's in town and places to go and that sort of thing. Inviting them in with your gateway and getting them to move around with the wayfinding. The next rule that he has is toilets attract more than flies. And it's the gotta go rule. And the main reason why tourists stop is to go to the toilet. And they stop even more frequently either the younger or the older the people are that are in the car. And so it's extremely important that toilets be well marked. And he tells some very, very funny stories about how they've stumbled on absolutely wonderful towns because they've had toilets, gas, food, whatever, 2 miles, and they pointed them out. They gave high marks to the public toilets at the Visitors Bureau, but again, it's very hard to find, and we're not leading people in and telling them that here is somewhere that they can go. The other thing he said is that one of the things they noticed in Angels Camp is that almost every merchant has a sign that says no toilet, no public toilet, no restrooms, whatever. He said that's fine. Everybody doesn't have to have a restroom to use for the public use, but tell them where they can go. So one of the things you see in the middle, there, is they say public restrooms located behind the pharmacy, and they have an arrow which tells you where is Brooks Pharmacy. So these are little things that are they're positive as opposed to negative. That creates an ambiance when people are visiting your town. The next one shows you. This is a place called Little America, and I think I've been past this somewhere. But this is a private business, but they really advertise that they've got 24-hour relief, they've got public toilets. Because, and many of you probably know, McDonald's, Burger King, a lot of the fast food restaurants, do not refuse non-customers to using their toilets. The main reason is they know that when you run in to use the bathroom, what do you usually do? you buy something, you feel guilty because you just scurried in, so you pretend that you just come in and then you buy something to drink or you buy food, and they know that that brings customers in. And so again, having good public facilities and having them well located is a key tourist satisfier. And they mentioned that here, Angels Camp just has this little sign that says rest area, but you can't see it. They pass by it, and it needs then, I guess, to be, we need to lead people in, we need to let them know, and then our merchants need to be, a lot of people don't like to ask. The next one is parking is not just for lovers. I don't think we have a 2-hour limit downtown, but we obviously don't have parking meters, and they're saying that a 2-hour limit is really a killer for people who are coming in to visit and to shop. They're always running back, and then they move their car, and if they get in to move their car, they don't come back. That a 4-hour limit is better, and working on ways that you can help people. We don't have that much of a problem, but we do have a problem in people finding out where our parking is and helping them find that, and then helping them find their way down to Main Street. So this is not as much of a issue for Angels Camp. The next thing is really important, and this is the 2020 signage equals scholars. It's been proven and demonstrated that having signs that's perpendicular to your building is the best way for both vehicular traffic and for pedestrians to see what's going on in your store. If it is parallel to your building, you're driving along, you've got 4 seconds, and you have to take your eye off the road to read what that signage is. And if you are a pedestrian, you actually have to step out into the street to see what that shop is. And they said probably on Main Street, that's not a good idea to back out into traffic. We have a major problem in this area. The other being a lot of fast food restaurants, do not refuse non-customers to using the toilets. The main reason is they know that when you run in to use the bathroom, what do you usually do? You buy something, you feel guilty because you just scurried in, so you pretend that you just come in and then you buy something to drink or you buy food, and they know that that brings customers in. And so again, having good public facilities and having them well located is a key tourist satisfier. And they mentioned that here, Angels Camp just has this little sign that says rest area, but you can't see it. They pass by it, and it needs then, I guess, to be, we need to lead people in, we need to let them know, and then our merchants need to be. A lot of people don't like to ask. The next one is parking is not just for lovers. I don't think we have a 2-hour limit downtown, but we obviously don't have parking meters, and they're saying that a 2-hour limit is really a killer for people who are coming in to visit and to shop. They're always running back, and then they move their car. If they get in to move their car, they don't come back. That 4-hour limit is better, and working on ways that you can help people. We don't have that much of a problem, but we do have a problem in people finding out where our parking is and helping them find that, and then helping them find their way down to Main Street. So this is not as much of a issue for Angels Camp. The next thing is really important, and this is the 2020 signage equals scholars. There is to see what's going on in your store. If it is parallel to your building, you're driving along, you've got 4 seconds, and you have to take your eye off the road to read what that signage is. And if you are a pedestrian, you actually have to step out into the street to see what that shop is. And they said probably on Main Street, that's not a good idea to back out into traffic. We have a major problem in this area. The other is, you can't tell, but this curved road over here in the lower right is the drive into Greenhorn Creek. And over in the woods, there's a little sign that says that there's a park here. And again, it's parallel to the road, it's in the bushes, you can't see it. If it were perpendicular to the road, the signage on both sides, you spot it right away. And so they say that it's been shown that the signage should be no lower than 7 feet off the sidewalk, no higher than 9, and about 42 inches wide is maximum. And your signage should not just say Crisco's. Use an example, it should say Crisco's Ristorante, because as people are walking down, they don't know what Crisco's is. We do, but the visitors don't. So you want to not just say, I don't know, Brown and Sons, you want to say Brown and Sons homemade furniture or jewelry or whatever it is, so that as they move down the street, they can see it, and also vehicular traffic can see it. So he has some more pictures of signs here in Angels Camp. To the next slide. And Pat, yes? Yes.
Other signage is no lower than 7 feet, no higher than 9. Or
Well, but almost all parallel to the street.
no. The hanging.
Some of this are good. These are all showing the parallel ones. Okay. And now the next slide should show, see, they talked about the fact that
They're hard to see in the front.
Yeah, I know, and it's dark. The perfect niche, they said looked really good. They've done a good job with curb appeal, with the planters and that sort of thing, and with their signs hanging up down there. So, and that continues on. And they did then spot Cherokee Flat, which they said they didn't see it at first, because it's sort of in a mixture of things. And then they drove by, and then they turned around and went back. And that day, Karen had the sign parallel to the building because of the wind. And they said if she had turned it around so you could see it as you were going by. The other thing they followed it for was the fact that it's done in script and calligraphy, has a lot of words on the sign, and you just can't read it as you're going by when you're a new visitor and you're trying to figure out where you are and read everything. So that has a lot of curb appeal. It also didn't tell you where to park. So they pulled in to Alderville Market and then came back and found out how they could get in, and then found out there was a marvelous store inside. So again, how this could be. He talks about Kelly's famous laughing crab. What kind of business do you think that is? A restaurant, seafood restaurant. Well, it actually makes flags and banners and kites. And they went out of business very quickly because they didn't tell anybody what they're doing, why they're there. Cute sign. Okay. They had some more suggestions, and one, of course, I think I've covered some of it. But hopefully they said that as the branding committee gets moving and working with the planning commission and the signage team, come up with some guidelines and go around and help business owners as they start to implement this thing. If you have good signage, it pulls people in. The signage, good signage pays for itself in a month or two in increased business. So they have a suggestion for Gold Country Inn, which has a great big vinyl banner across it, says wireless internet. They have all these signs out front, so the clutter is terrific. He didn't give they actually did a mock-up of how Gold Country Inn could put those words and everything on a nice sign below Gold Country Inn. Make it look organized, give it some curb appeal, make it look like, oh, that's a nice place to stay. Okay, next one, next signage. Now, they said the historic Angels Camp parking sign, it has a bit of the history and that sort of thing, but right across the street is Paulson's, which tells you what it does, because it's got the beer, the cocktails, and the pool stick. but it isn't in keeping with the historic area. They also mentioned, and you can't see it, that it would be a good idea if we kept our streets clean. That it's the pride that we take in our own front of our buildings and keeping things cleaned up that are really what demonstrates to other people and creates that curb appeal. Now, next one is another rule, which is about critical mass. And he has a rule called the 10-10-10 rule. And that is that within a 3-block area of your primary shopping area, your primary destination in your town, you should have 10 places that sell food, that provide food.
Yeah.
10 places, let's see, I can't remember either. What? It's so good. 10 retail shops, and then 10 places that are open after 6 p.m. Okay, now they said that doesn't mean that a restaurant couldn't have music in the evening and therefore count as one of each. But it's the 10-10-10 rule in a 3-block area that you must have in order to grab and keep your tourists. And because the longer they stay, and it's the ones who stay around in the evening that spend the most money. And they stay around. So again, we need to think about that in terms of critical mass for Angels Camp. And that again would be something that an economic development committee and the branding committee would begin to work on. Some other notes and first impressions, and we are coming to the end, but these are fun. They were very impressed with the Aldenville School. However, what does the Aldenville School say? It just says it's taken care of by the County Historical Society. It doesn't sell you on why you should come in, or it doesn't tell you that it was the first school in the county or whatever. And then you go in, and of course, people want experiential. They want experience as part of their travel. And you walk in and you can't go into the school. You can only look in through the glass. So it's, we keep you out. And then here's this blank lobby. And this is a wonderful place because this is the first thing people see when they come into, well, not the first thing they see, but this is the first tourist thing they see when they come into Angels Camp. And we could have kiosks that sell the other things about Angels Camp. We could have a map of Angels Camp. We could have all kinds of things there that actually cross-sell and bring people further into town. So that's an underused facility that's soon going to come in under the city and the museum commission. So hopefully we will take some of these suggestions to heart. The next area is where? The empty lobby is the inside of the Aldenville School. So you can walk into the lobby, and then they have glass to cover so that you can't go into the school. They had some more suggestions, and one was, of course, the Angels Camp Museum, as that people want the sense of history. They want to be able to touch things. They want to know the story behind things. They really don't care who donated them. Unless they are from the donor family. And they need to tell a story. And they don't want just artifacts. Anybody can have a whole collection of artifacts. So they've made some recommendations in terms of that. They also suggest that we get our opening hours, that this town is closed more than it's open, and most of the shops are closed more than they're open. And of course, they came in the middle of the week, and that was during the winter, and the museum was closed with a big close sign on it. So that was one. Another suggestion was to make, which is the next slide, is again talking about the museum, is tell the story about these things, make them accessible, and you'll see that right now some of these recommendations are happening because they're changing the landscaping in front of the museum, and we are working on that. They had, the next one is the Memorial Garden. There is no explanation as to why it's a Memorial Garden. So they were left to wonder who's buried there. Are there former city officials? I mean, are there desperados? Who's buried there? Is anybody buried there? Then there's no explanation of what those things are hanging on the wall. why are these tukas? And they thought, are these bullet holes? Is that why? This is a memorial garden. This is down below the main building on the museum complex. They also thought there should be more signage down there. Then they thought that the little church was so wonderful, but there's nothing really out there that tells you much about it. Who built it? When did they build it? Why did they build it? How many people were here at the time? What's its history? And they'd like to see more of that. Next one. See, they were very ecumenical in their look at Angels Camp. They really thought that the Visitors Bureau was a lovely building, very good things inside, very helpful staff. They loved the porch where people could sit out. They liked to just see it. There's a sort of a circle over in the lower left-hand corner where any 24 hours a day you can pick up materials. But they said this sign is actually almost useless because, again, it's sitting in a slant. It's almost parallel to the road. It's not two-sided, and it's under the trees, and you're on top of it before you even see it. And then try to turn around on Main Street and come back and just keep on going, right? So they suggested something on the sides. They also said on the side, the toilets are great, but they would suggest that they get rid of the newspaper stands and actually fix something up there that has a kiosk and more information, maybe even a map about Angels Camp and where you can go. And then the next slide shows some of the things that people have done with the 24-hour information thing, and it's covered. And you see that actually in Carmel. Those of you who've been down there on the street corners, they have these boxes with all these brochures and newspapers and magazines in, all very neat. The other suggestion they had was that people like to walk. If they get in their car, you have a tendency to lose them. They'll just keep on going. They really like to walk. And we have all these broken segments of pavement and non-pavement, that sort of thing. The recommendation is we get that filled in. Make it easy for the people who are staying in the motels up in the middle part of town to get down to downtown. Make it easy for people to get to the park. And so this is a picture of some of our broken sidewalk. And they said it's very intimidating. I mean, we're used to it, but it's very intimidating for a first-time traveler. They gave high marks to Best Western, Cedar Inn, and again, they're showing more of these areas where we really need sidewalks, we need help, and again, good signage for pedestrians. They went out to Greenhorn Creek, but Greenhorn Creek doesn't tell them what Greenhorn Creek is. And so they weren't sure, but they were told they should go out to Greenhorn Creek. They were very pleased with the signage when they got here, but they think there could be more in terms of telling you what it is. And the other suggestion they had was that this is historic town, and we use these cartoon frogs on our street signs that they said really doesn't say quality, doesn't say character, and doesn't say history. And as we were looking at our signage and that sort of thing, we felt that this is another area. All this has to work. It all works together. And if you think back to towns that you visited where it all works together, you really like to be there and you remember it. And so it's creating the experience. And a little bit more. They said that that there are a lot of this signage, really, and we need to develop a character, but we're all over the place in Angels Camp. We're modern, we're old-fashioned, we're Western, we're frogs, we're everything. And again, that's something that they're going to be helping us with. By helping to create this ambiance in the downtown will be really, really important. Next one, they said, again, these were some of their experiences. They said it happened to be right after the parade when they were here, and Sue's was still decorating downtown. They said that probably, while it was interesting and caught their eye, doesn't create quality, and doesn't say much about quality on Main Street. They liked this sign on the proper sign, which of course isn't there anymore. They went up to Twisted Oak, and they loved the visit to Twisted Oak Winery. But they said the signage looks like some temporary thing, and it really doesn't pull you off the road. And that it's far nicer venue than what it looks like from the road. The next slide will show you they went, oh, great, there's an artist colony. Let's go up and see. When they got up there was nothing that told them where to go. There was this great big stop sign. They couldn't tell whether artists just lived there, whether they were working there or anything. And they said, these are the kinds of things that really turn people off when you are led to believe, and plus the fact that the sign is just white on black and certainly isn't very indicative of very creative artists living up there. But you know, if all you have to go on is first impressions, you know, we know what's there, but visitors do not. The next thing that they talked about was frog towns. Too bad the race not here. But they went out there. They found it hard to get around. There's signs going, you know, arrows going everywhere, and it didn't tell you what Frogtown is. Is this a museum? Is this a natural history museum? Do they have frogs there? What's going on out there? It was very hard for them to figure out. And so they recommended, they thought that the gate and that sort of thing created, I think that's the next slide. And then certainly on the way out, they have lots of signs that says, come back again. So that was an excellent place for them to put a nice list of, you know, make things look classy, but a nice list of upcoming events so you'll know when to come back, because it was empty when they went there that day. So there are all kinds, they've made a number of recommendations on things that you could do, that we could do to make Angels Camp more inviting and to sell. I think that probably, I won't go in, it's only a few more slides and I won't go into it, but basically what they've done is they're showing, well take the next one, Kim, here. This is a booklet that they put together. They said, think like a shopping mall where you're trying to, you know, sell your best, you know, you always have anchor tenants that bring in the most shoppers and then they stop and they do the other little things. This was put together by a town that took their best of, the best mark or deli and the best restaurant for this and the best bar, and put them all together. And they've seen business really go gangbusters because it looks great. And what they've done is they've zeroed in on their key, their best, and then the others all benefit from that. Another one they showed, which is 2 more slides, which says this one. This was done by a private individual that put together the 101 things to do in Door County. And you can see the nice look, and you know, taking this and do that. And he is now in like his 5th or 6th printing, and it has just been a huge seller, but actually it has brought this increased tourism many, many times over, just having something that is special in that way. And then, I think this one's important, is never send customers away, invite them back. And he has lots of slides of we're closed, we're closed, we're closed, we're closed, we're closed. Tell them when you're going to be open. If you're closed, does that mean you're out of business? You're closed for 10 minutes, you're closed for an hour, you're closed for a week, you're closed for a month. It doesn't, they can't tell. But to tell you when you're coming back and when you're open. The next slide shows a few more, and but most of them were closed in town. And finally, the last thing, their recommendation, this first one, or not recommendation, suggestion, is that it's really important to create gathering places downtown and to animate them. And they suggested that as quickly as we can, we pass an ordinance about billboards in Main Street, but that this was a very underused area and also did not speak well of Angels Camp, where other towns have even taken a few parking spaces on Main Street and created this little bay for people to be able to sit in or to eat in and that sort of thing, to create that that ambiance and to get people to rest and relax, to let the husband rest while the wife is shopping or the other way around. And another thing they were talking about is even creating places where people can sit outside, because if they're walking around with food or drink and you don't want them in the store, then let them sit in front of your store and finish the food and drink rather than walking away and going somewhere else. So that's basically it. That was their assessment of Angels Camp with some suggestions. The next stage, I believe, is that they will come back with some recommendations. This still doesn't deal with the issue of what's the lure of Angels Camp. What's our brand going to be? And that is all going to be coming from them with recommendations and a lot of community input. And again, I'll be happy to answer questions if I can. I will say that they have just an 8-page booklet called The Art of Branding. And if you would like a copy of this, which gives you their 35 rules or 25 rules of branding, we'll be glad to send this to you by email if you leave me your email address, and we'll get that out to you this week. And also, we certainly would love to have some volunteers to be on the branding of the steering committee. And with that, I'll take your questions. Yes, Pat.
Since the second portion of their meeting was canceled, probably because of the whole point of their life thing, is that been rescheduled?
For those of you who don't know, last Thursday, Roger Brooks and his one of the principals in his company, Monica Dixon, who interviewed a number of people here in town, are flying back in for, I guess, about 4 or 5 hours. And we were hoping to have a meeting with them, with the people who attended, either were interviewed by them or attended the February 6th. And they were going to rehash some things, seek some opinions, and also talk a bit about what the branding steering committee, branding development committee would do. And Roger was caught when the American Airlines shut down, so he didn't make it. And I don't know when that's going to be rescheduled. But I know they're coming back to the city council sometime with I don't know whether it's suggestions or recommendations, because they certainly haven't had any input from their suggestions.
Bob, will you get that presentation?
We have it in electronics. There's a public review copy at City Hall that I can give everybody that wants it in electronics. And we're also going to be trying to put it onto the website.
It's 66 pages.
Electronic means that the electronic format. It's on disc, it's on CD. So we can burn CD for you, or you can just download it.
It's 66 pages, but it's good stuff.
And then the other question, how do you get someone to take a sign down on property owner?
Pardon me?
How do you get someone to take a sign down on property owner? The empty branding show isn't on that block. Oh, yes, and you don't know it. That sign's still there.
Well, I would suspect from reading this report and the other things that he sent, that that's really the role of the branding steering committee, which is more like a business development committee too, in starting to set some guidelines and going around and, I mean, there are going to be lots of more of these public meetings, because the more people, I think, part of building public opinion is getting this story out, and I'll be glad to come and stand again, talk to a Rotary or another at clubs or whatever, to get this story out, to make people start to, to see yourself as others see you. And then to begin to think about the fact that there are things that we can do. And we don't want everybody running out and suddenly starting putting up new signs and things. Let's wait till we know what's our lure, what are we going to coalesce around, what's going to be that hook that's going to pull people in, and then how do we build that experience throughout the community. And is it Ken?
Yes. Well, I was wondering what format the input to DEI is going to be. Is that meetings, the questionnaires, the website? How does this meeting fit in?
Well, they had this, Monica Dixon came down and, I don't know, interviewed 20 or 30 members within the community. And then they came back with this report, plus it was a 3-hour presentation on February the 6th. And I'm not sure, Tim, do you know what the next step is and when they're coming back?
They will be coming back to the city council to make their presentation, but we not said
Okay. So we'll, as best we can, keep people involved in what's going to happen.
Yeah, follow-up question, is there an email list we can get on to be sure to be notified of all these steps as they happen?
Sure. Just give us your email address. We're trying to get it out to members, and we're increasing our email to businesses also. Yes.
What is the most appropriate way for people in the community to contact whomever if they have an idea regarding what they think the branding should be?
You want to send that to Doc Monica at destinationdevelopment.com. Doc Monica is D as in dog, O-C, Monica at destinationdevelopment.com.
And one of the things that I'll just throw out, because I know that we are all wedded to frogs, but one of the things that they mentioned is that the frogs really go with Calaveras County because it's the celebrated jumping frog in Calaveras County, not an Angels Camp. Another thing they mentioned is that most children in elementary school do not read Mark Twain, and they don't read these stories anymore, so they have actually no idea. They have what the celebrated jumping frog is. They have some very interesting material in the back of this from their secret shoppers who were told to go on websites and look for information. The Angels Camp information, except as it applies to the Visitors Bureau, go calaveras.com. When they come into just Angels Camp or the city is dreadful. And a lot of times the links don't work and everything. So that is the number one thing that you do. But again, you want it to be reflective of the experience and the lore and everything, and that's to be continued. So it's frustrating, but it'll take time. This is a 3 to 10 year program. Any other questions? Oh, Bob. Yes. Yes, and they did talk about that. That of course you know what they're going to say. Where can we eat around here? What's the answer? Go to Murphy's. So no one says, I know they're in strip malls, but there's actually a really nice Chinese restaurant, a Mexican restaurant, or have you tried this or that and the other thing? They had experience when they came the first time. They stopped somebody right at 5 o'clock, and it was on a Thursday, and they said, where can I eat? And there was no attempt to tell them about what was in town. They just told them to go to Murphy's, and they said, no, sorry, we're closing, as opposed to can we help you? There's very little cross-selling, cross-marketing, so if you go into a restaurant as a visitor, someone doesn't say, oh, I see you, are you new in town, are you visiting? And have you been over to see the museum? And you really should go. We have all these great caverns and mines around here. We thought about these tours and that sort of stuff. And they don't, there's none of this cross-selling. So they go to the museum, unless they ask specifically, they probably aren't recommended to go downtown and all that. Any other questions? Well, I've kept you very long. Thank you very much. And please sign up to be on the committee.